I still had my work shirt on when the phone lit up. Tuesday, late July, the apartment still holding the day's heat, and I hadn't bothered turning on a light yet. I was sitting on the edge of the couch with my shoes still on, and the screen brightened on the coffee table, and I saw her name before I saw the message. Something is wrong with the... That was all of it. No period, no follow-up. I called her. 4 rings, then her voicemail, the one she recorded 2 years ago that still says she'll get back to you as soon as she can. I didn't wait for the beep to finish thinking. "Mariah, it's me. Call me back right now." I hung up and texted her in the same breath, my thumbs moving faster than I usually let them. "Call me. What's wrong?" Nothing came back. I set the phone face up on the table where I could watch it. 20 minutes. I called again. Voicemail. I didn't leave a second message. I texted instead, then sat there turning the phone over in my hand. 20 more minutes. Same thing. The third time I called, I was standing, pacing between the kitchen and the window. I told myself she'd dropped the phone in the lake, or she was 3 miles from the nearest tower, or she was laughing right now at how she'd scared me over nothing. The fourth call didn't ring. It went straight to voicemail, no rings at all. The phone was off, or the battery had died. I got the ranger station number from the contact she'd made me save before she left. She'd written it on a sticky note and made me put it in my phone while she watched, and told me if I didn't hear from her by such and such to call it and not panic. I remember rolling my eyes at her a little. I texted the station instead of calling. I typed out that my sister was on a registered backcountry trip, that her last contact had been a text that cut off mid-sentence, that her phone was now going straight to voicemail. I sent it. I didn't wait to see if 3 dots would show up under it. I already knew they weren't going to. I changed out of the shirt and slacks because I couldn't think in them anymore, and pulled on whatever was on top of the drawer. I grabbed a bag from the closet and didn't pack it so much as fill it. Headlamp, an extra layer, the phone charger still coiled around itself, a water bottle I filled halfway at the sink because I didn't want to stand there and wait for it to fill all the way. Under 15 minutes, and I was in the car, and the dome light clicked off, and I was pulling out onto the street with the bag still unzipped in the passenger seat. US 131 North takes you up through the middle of the state. The road's narrow, the trees close in, and the radio starts losing stations one at a time until there's nothing but static and the sound of the tires. I wasn't really deciding to drive fast. I just wasn't correcting for it. Somewhere past Cadillac, the sky went from blue to a flat, starless dark, and I didn't notice when that happened, only that it had. I stopped once, in Ironwood, for gas, because the tank was going to make the decision for me if I didn't. The station was lit up too bright against the dark around it. The kid behind the counter didn't look at me twice, and I didn't buy anything to eat even though I hadn't eaten since lunch. I got back in the car before the receipt finished printing. 4 hours becomes 6 hours somewhere in there, the miles blurring on roads I didn't know. I don't remember most of it, only the dashboard clock ticking forward faster than it should have been able to. I remember thinking about the 20-minute gaps between my calls, doing the math on how long her phone might have been dead before I even noticed, and not liking any number I came up with. South Boundary Road trailhead at 4 in the morning. I turned off the headlights before I turned off the engine, and the parking lot came up gravel pale in what was left of my headlamp beam once I clicked it on. Empty. No other cars, no lit windows anywhere, nothing moving. Except her Civic. Green, parked at an angle near the trail sign, the way she always parks, like she's already thinking about which way she'll be leaving. I walked up to it and put my hand flat on the hood. It was cold. It had been sitting there a long time. The doors were locked. I checked all 4, out of habit, out of something less than habit. And there on the driver's seat, right where she would have set them down for 1 second on her way to grab something else, catching what little light there was, were her keys. I left the keys locked in the car and started up the marked trail on foot. My headlamp threw a small cone of light against tree trunks that all looked the same, and I walked faster than the trail wanted me to, catching a root once and going down hard on one knee, getting back up without checking how bad it was. The registered site was maybe a mile and a half in, and I knew the number because she'd told me before she left, laughing a little at how seriously I was writing it down. When the trees opened up into the clearing, I saw her tent first, staked out square and even, the way she always did it, no slack in the guy lines. Two-person, dome-shaped, zipped halfway. I said her name before I got there. I said it again, standing over the tent. And when nothing answered, I unzipped it the rest of the way and shone the light inside. Sleeping bag laid open like she'd just climbed out of it. Her pack sat in the corner, upright, the straps loose the way she left them when she wasn't planning to carry it far. I went through it without asking myself if I should. Food bag, water filter, first aid kit, headlamp still clipped to the strap. Everything accounted for except the yellow jacket, the waterproof one she wore over everything else, the one I'd seen her put on 100 times before 100 hikes. It wasn't in the pack. It wasn't in the tent. It wasn't draped over anything. The stove was still going. It sat on a flat rock a few feet from the tent door, the burner turned low, the flame a thin blue ring holding steady in the dark. The aluminum pot on top of it was warm when I touched it. Not hot, just warm. Coffee, from the smell of it, gone bitter and reduced down to almost nothing in the bottom. She had been standing right here making coffee, and now she was gone. I called her name into the trees, north first, then east, walking maybe 30 yards each way with my phone light out ahead of me. I called west. I called northwest, into thicker brush, my voice sounding wrong to me, too loud for 4 in the morning, swallowed up before it got anywhere. Nothing came back. No rustle, no answer, no shape moving between trunks. I came back to the campsite because I didn't have anywhere else to go, and I sat down on a fallen log near the tent and put my head in my hands and waited for the sky to do something. It took its time. The dark went gray before it went anything else, and then the gray thinned out enough that I could see color again, and that was when I saw the boot prints. They were at the northwest edge of the clearing, where the ground softened before it climbed toward a shelf of exposed rock. 2 full prints, heel and toe both clear, spaced like a normal walking stride, and then a third print that was only half there, the front half, as if whoever made it had stepped onto the rock and the tracks simply stopped. I crouched down and took pictures with my phone, 3 or 4 angles, close, and then pulled back to show the distance to the tent. I called the ranger station right after that, standing in the one spot in the clearing where my phone showed a bar of signal that kept flickering in and out. I told whoever answered what I had: the tent, the pack, the missing jacket, the stove still burning when I got there, the prints heading northwest. I gave them the site number and my location, and was told someone would come out. It was almost 7 when the truck showed up on the access road below the campsite, and the ranger who got out of it was a big man, heavy-set through the shoulders, in no hurry at all. He didn't hurry up the trail. He didn't call out to me. He just walked the perimeter of the campsite once, slow, hands in his jacket pockets, and then walked it again the other direction, and at no point did he take out a notebook or write down a single thing. "People leave campsites without incident all the time," he said when he'd finished his second lap, like he was picking up a conversation we'd already started. "Usually there's a simple explanation." I told him about the stove. I told him about the jacket. He nodded like that didn't change anything. "This forest is not a good place for worry," he said. I looked at him for a second, waiting for him to explain what he meant. He didn't. His face didn't do anything at all. "Not a good place for worry," I said back to him, the same words, waiting to see if he'd flinch at hearing them come out of somebody else's mouth. He didn't. He looked at me for a moment, then looked past me toward the tent. I took him to the edge of the clearing and showed him the prints, still holding up in the morning light, sharper now than they'd looked at 4 in the morning. "What's out there?" I asked him. "Northwest. What's in that direction?" "There's nothing in that direction worth looking at," he said. He said it flat, and I didn't believe he'd actually gone and checked. He filled out a form on a clipboard he pulled from the truck before he left, standing in the open door, writing without looking down much. He told me search and rescue would run a grid sweep starting that morning, and that I should stay near the trailhead, where the signal came and went, but at least it came. Then he got in his truck and the engine started, and I stood there and watched it pull away down the access road until the trees closed in behind it. The stove was still running. I crouched down and turned the burner off myself, because nobody else was going to, and the little blue ring of flame went out, and the only sound left in the clearing was the cold ticking of the metal cooling down. I didn't go to the trailhead. I went northwest instead, following the same line the boot prints had pointed, walking until the soil gave out under my feet and turned to bare rock shelves that didn't hold a print or a scuff or anything at all. The hardwood thinned into hemlock, and then the hemlock thinned into nothing much, just rock and low brush and silence. I called her name until my voice went rough with it. "Mariah, Mariah." Nothing came back except my own voice flattening out against the trees. I walked until the light started going orange and low, and then I walked back, because I didn't have a headlamp yet, and I wasn't ready to lose myself out there too. The second day I drove to the station instead. Marsh's truck wasn't in the lot. A younger ranger was at the desk, sandy hair combed too neat for a man who worked outdoors, name tag reading Campbell. He told me the grid sweep had covered the main trail system and the lake shore top to bottom and come up with nothing. "Nobody's gone northwest of the camp," I said. It wasn't a question, and he didn't take it as one. "The sweep followed the trail system," he said. "That's what we've got mapped." I asked him if there was anything out that way, anything at all. A tower, a cabin, something decommissioned, something that used to be on a map even if it wasn't anymore. He turned to the wall behind him where a laminated trail map hung under a strip of fluorescent light, and he ran a finger over it, and he said, "There's nothing in that quadrant on the trail system." Like the trail system was the only thing that could possibly be out there. I looked at the map myself while he still had his finger on it. Northwest of the campsite marker was just green. No dots, no dashes, no legend symbol for anything. Just green, like somebody had decided that part of the park didn't need a name. I went back the third morning because I didn't have anywhere else to go. I was standing near the counter when the door opened behind me, and a woman came in wearing trail pants and a cap pulled low, a small hydration pack still on her back like she hadn't planned on stopping long. She said she wanted to report something she'd seen. She said she'd been hiking off the Lake of the Clouds overlook trail the day before and had gone down an unmarked path, and about 4 miles out she'd come up on a rocky knob with a metal tower on it, and there was a young woman standing at the base of it. Dark hair, a yellow waterproof jacket. She'd called out to her twice. The woman hadn't turned around. I was already moving toward her before Campbell had even looked up from the desk. "What did she look like?" I said. "Besides the jacket." "Slight build, dark hair, down, not tied back that I could see." She looked at me like she was trying to place why I was asking. "Is she someone you know?" I didn't answer that. Marsh came in from the back room right then, unhurried the way he always was, like nothing that happened in that station could move faster than he wanted it to. He took the woman's report the way he'd taken mine, standing there nodding along, then thanked her and carried it to his desk and slid it into a folder. He didn't write anything on the wall map. He didn't pick up the radio. "That structure's a decommissioned fire lookout," he told me before I'd even asked. "Not part of the trail system. Unsafe. Not somewhere a solo camper would likely go." "Someone just told you she was standing at the base of it." "I heard her. Will anyone go to the tower?" He looked at me for a second with those pale eyes that never seemed to be reacting to anything, and he said, The search is focused on areas a disoriented hiker would most likely reach. That was the whole answer. I said it again to see if it would sound any different the second time, and it didn't. And he didn't explain it either. I caught the woman outside before she got to her car. Teresa, she said her name was, when I asked. I told her I was looking for my sister and asked her, as plainly as I could get the words out, to tell me exactly how she'd gotten there. She didn't hesitate, didn't ask me anything back, just laid it out the way she must have walked it. I left the overlook trail at a boulder with a split top, right at the edge where the trail bends north. Headed northwest from there on what looked like a deer path. Barely a path, really. Walked maybe 40 minutes before the tower came up on a rocky knob above the tree line. You didn't go up to her? No. She looked past me for a second, toward the trees at the edge of the lot. She didn't move the whole time I could see her. I called out twice. I don't know. Something about the way she was standing there. I just kept walking. I thanked her. She got in her car and left, and I stood in the gravel lot a while longer, and Marsh's truck sat there the whole time, and nobody came out of that station to go anywhere at all. That night I drove out to the Lake of the Clouds overlook and parked in the empty lot, and I found the boulder right where she'd said, split clean across the top like something had once come down on it hard enough to crack it. I checked the headlamp, turned it on, turned it off again, put it on. 4 miles of forest with no trail and no name on any map lay out ahead of me in the dark. I stepped onto the deer path at 10 o'clock, the beam of the headlamp cutting a narrow corridor in front of me, the boulder already gone behind me. The knob rose out of the trees a little before 11, the headlamp catching bare rock where the topsoil had given up, and the tower stood on top of it black against a sky that had no moon in it that night. 60 feet of steel and timber, the paint gone gray and flaking off in long strips. No fence around it, no sign, nothing to say this was a place with a name or a purpose. Whoever had built the trail system for this park had built it around this spot on purpose. The ground floor door was standing open, not propped, not forced. Open, as though someone had walked through it without stopping to close it behind them. Inside was a room the size of a bedroom, bare concrete, a steel shelf bolted to one wall with a scatter of rusted hand tools on it, pliers and a crimper, and something that might have been a signal test kit 40 years ago. On the wall opposite the door, tacked at eye level, a laminated sheet in a plastic sleeve. Relay station, active personnel. 9 names, 2 columns. I read down the first column and my eyes went past her name once before they came back to it. Mariah Davenport. 5th on the list. Beside every name, including hers, someone had drawn a small red check mark, and the marker was fresh, not the flat, sun-bleached red of something that had been on that wall for years, but wet-looking, recent, the kind of red that still has a sheen to it under a headlamp. I took a picture of it. My hand was steady doing it, which surprised me later more than it did right then. I checked my phone for signal after. Nothing. Not even the one bar that flickers in and out near the ridge trail. Nothing at all, like the tower was standing in a hole in the coverage map that had been cut out on purpose. A staircase ran up the inside of the tower to the observation deck, and I took it. The deck was what you'd expect from something left alone for 60 years. A drift of dead leaves in the corners, a rusted firefinder scope bolted to the center rail, its glass long gone. No sign of her, no jacket snagged on a bolt, no boot print in the leaf litter, nothing. It was the hatch that stopped me. Square, steel, set into the floor of the deck where it should have opened straight down into the tower's own interior, the same 40 feet of empty steel frame I'd just climbed up through. It was unlatched and propped open a few inches on a flat stone somebody had wedged under the lip. I got down on my knees and shone the headlamp through the gap, expecting to see the underside of the stairs I'd just come up. I saw a concrete staircase going down. Poured concrete walls, electrical conduit run along them in metal clips, The whole thing lit by nothing, my headlamp the only light in it, and it kept going farther than the beam could reach, farther down than a 60-foot tower has any business going. Warm air came up out of the hole and touched my face, and it smelled like machine oil, and under that, fainter, that specific electric smell of fluorescent tubes warming up in a closed room. I picked a pebble off the deck floor and dropped it through the hatch and counted, out loud, low, the way you count off a lightning strike. I got to 11 before I stopped counting because there was nothing to count toward. No sound came back up. Nothing hit anything. I went down anyway. The stairs led out into a room the size of a bus depot. Concrete floor, concrete walls, cold. 3 of the walls were lined floor to ceiling with equipment I recognized only from documentaries. Reel-to-reel tape machines, big steel-cased amplifiers, patch bays with cords hanging slack out of them like they'd been abandoned mid-connection. All of it dead. Dust on the housings, dials at 0. The 4th wall was doors. 12 of them, steel, each stenciled with a numeral, each one sealed with a wheel lock like something off the side of a ship. 2 fluorescent strips on the ceiling buzzed and held a flat white light over maybe a third of the room. The rest sat in the dark, past their reach. On the floor in front of the door numbered 7, there was a boot. 1 boot. A woman's hiking boot, size 7, laced and tied off in a double knot. Mariah had tied her boots that way since she was a teenager, 2 loops instead of 1, because a single knot always came undone on her going downhill. I did not touch it. I stood over it for a while and did not touch it. Across from door 7, one of the dead machines wasn't dead. A reel-to-reel deck sat with its 2 spindles turning, slow, patient, no tape loaded on either one, and it was making a sound, low, steady, a tone I felt behind my back teeth. I stepped closer and the tone didn't stop. It layered. New frequencies stacked on top of the first one, and the longer I stood there, the more it sounded less like a machine noise and more like several voices talking over each other. None of the pitches right, none of them landing where a human voice would land. It wasn't playing anything. There was no tape on it to play. It was receiving. Something was on the other side of door 7, and it was broadcasting. I found the manual on a hook beside door 3. A clipboard, 40 pages or close to it, filled corner to corner in a single cramped ballpoint hand. No margins. Like the writer had been afraid of running out of paper. I stood under the working lights and read it standing up because sitting down felt like it would take too long. It said the station went in 1962, built under a federal contract for a man who signed himself only as RV, and that RV had ended up committed to a mental health facility in Newberry, Michigan, sometime after. It called the 12 doors channels, every time, no other word for them. Spaces that sat on the same coordinates as this one but folded off it somehow, in a way the writer admitted he couldn't put a number to. Sound crossed between them. Objects crossed between them when the right tone was running, and a person could cross by walking through a door while its machine was tuned and live. It said a person could only come back the way they went in, through the same door, and only while that door's machine kept running. If the machine was switched off with someone still inside, the door closed, permanently. The word was underlined once, hard enough to tear a small groove in the paper. The last entry was in a different pen, darker blue, and the hand had lost its evenness, the letters leaning and crowding each other in a way the rest of the pages didn't. Someone is switching the machines off from inside the channels. That is not supposed to be possible. I looked up from the page at door 7, where the one machine in the whole room was running. I stand there with the manual still in my hand, and I look at the wheel lock, and I turn it. The wheel lock gave with a shudder I felt in my wrist, and the door swung inward on hinges that had been oiled recently. No scream of rust, just a soft, mechanical give. For a second I thought I'd stepped back into the same room. Same footprint, same 3 walls of equipment banks, Same row of 12 doors along the fourth wall facing me, but the concrete was gone. White ceramic tile ran floor to ceiling, the grout gone gray-black with grime that had built up over years, and the equipment stacked against the walls was the same shape as what I'd left behind, but not the same age. Someone had opened these machines up and put newer parts inside them. Circuit boards soldered in clean, recent joins, wires routed and taped down with practiced, repetitive care. 3 people were working at the far bank. None of them turned when the door opened. They worked unhurried and precise, checking a dial, writing something on a clipboard, adjusting a patch cable a 1/4 inch and stepping back to look at it. One of them, a wiry man in a flannel shirt layered under a canvas coat 2 sizes too big for him, turned around like he'd heard me come in 10 minutes ago and was only now getting around to it. "You're the one looking for the girl," he said. Not a question. He said it the way you'd confirm an appointment. "How long have you been down here?" I said. He told me a number of days. I did the math without meaning to, against the day Mariah's text cut off, against the days since I'd started calling names off that roster in my head, and the number didn't fit. It was longer. Weeks longer for some of them, he said, tipping his head toward the other 2 without looking at them. He said it flat, the way you'd read a gauge. "Channel 3, he said, and went back to the patch bay, not waiting to see if I'd asked. "First one the guy who built this place opened. It's not like the others. The others are empty. Nothing in them, nothing happening, just rooms. 3 isn't like that." "What's in it?" "Don't know if it came in through the signal or if it was already there and the signal woke it up." He adjusted something, a small turn, checked it, left it. "It looks like people. Specifically, it looks like people we know. Gets it almost right." He held up one hand, turned it over. "Wrong number of teeth once. Wrong hands. The voice comes in a hair-off pitch if you listen close. It doesn't move the way the person moved." I didn't say anything. He didn't seem to need me to. 3 of us went in after people who'd gone missing," he said. "None of them came back. What came back through door 3 instead looked right. For about 2 days it looked right." He let that sit exactly as long as it took to move his hand to the next connector. Then it stopped. "Mariah," I said. "Came through 6 days ago, crossed into 3 before we could stop her." He said we could stop her like it was a fact about a door, not a fact about a person he'd watched walk through. "Door was open. We'd been trying to close it from this side for longer than that." "Why was it open?" "Because whatever's in 3 has been using it, reaching back out through the connection into channel 1, your relay station, while it's live." He crouched, tracing a cable along the base of a rack. "Closing that connection is what we've been doing. What we're still doing." I looked at the machines behind him, the 3 of them still working like none of this needed my reaction. 2 nights ago, he said, and this time he did stop, just for a second, hand flat on the top of the rack. Something that looks like her came back through door 3, into the relay station. It's been there since. "Been there," I said. "It asked for you by name." I thought about the relay station the way I'd left it. The 2 working light strips, the row of doors, the running machine with its low tone under everything. I'd stood in there alone for however many minutes it took to read 40 pages of a dead man's handwriting. I'd walked past door 3 to get to the clipboard. I'd stood close enough to the running machine to feel it in my teeth. I had not been alone in that room. I turned around before I'd decided to. Door 7 was still open behind me, and I went back through it the way I'd have stepped off a curb without looking, not thinking, just going. And it swung shut on its own weight once I'd cleared it, the sound of the latch settling into place behind my shoulder. The relay station was exactly as I'd left it. Same 2 fluorescent strips buzzing white overhead, the rest of the ceiling dark. Same row of 12 doors along the wall. And across the room, near door 3, stood Mariah, held in a stillness no living person could manage. It stood with its weight tipped forward onto the balls of its feet, the way a person looks in the half second before a step, except the step never came, and it never corrected for the imbalance. A body would have wobbled. This one just held there, weight forward, jacket the right yellow, hair the right dark, and it did not blink, not once, not the whole time I looked at it. Katie. The name came out in her voice with that lift she puts on the second syllable, the one nobody else gets right when they try to repeat it back to me. I want to go home. I didn't move toward it. My feet had already decided that much on their own. Tell me something only Mariah would know, I said. It answered without any pause to think. Mom's funeral, it said. They played the wrong song. She told the funeral home 3 times. No, not that one. And they played it anyway. And you looked over at me across the aisle when it started. And I looked back at you like... It stopped there, and I finished the sentence in my head before it could, because I remembered the look, because I was the one who'd given it. Nobody else had that. Not the funeral home, not our cousins, not anybody standing in that aisle. While it was still talking, its head tipped over to the left, slow, maybe 10 degrees, maybe more, and stopped there and stayed there, held at that angle like a photograph of a tilt instead of a tilt. And it did not blink, and it did not straighten, and it did not stop looking at me. I took 1 step back toward door 7. That was all it took. Its hand shot out sideways, too fast, too flat, and closed around the conduit running along the wall, and the 2 working light strips went out together with a sound like a held breath letting go, and the room dropped into red. I ran the rest of the way. I don't remember deciding to. I got through door 7 and heard it swing and heard the wheel spinning down behind me, Mike and the other 2 already on it before I'd even cleared the frame, spinning it hard, the metal-on-metal shriek of it sealing. Mike didn't look at me right away. He was still watching the door. It cannot break that, he said. But it can reach the machine. Your machine. Channel 7's receiving machine, on the relay station side. If it switches that off, the door closes. Permanently. We don't come back. So we do nothing. We do something. He turned around then. The connection to Channel 3 closes if somebody switches off Channel 3's machine, the one that was running when you got there, the one making that tone you felt in your teeth. And Mariah's in Channel 3. If it's off while that thing is standing in the relay station, the door to 3 closes. It can't project through anymore. He said it evenly, the same register he'd used to tell me a fuse had blown. It also means whoever's in Channel 3 doesn't come back through that door. There might be other doors into 3. I haven't found them. I stood there and let that sit exactly where it landed, which was nowhere good. Why me? Because it's waiting at door 7 on the other side, not behind you. You can still reach the relay station without walking into it. Not through here. He nodded past me at the row of doors along the wall, tiled the same, numbered the same. Door 4. That's just outdoors up there. Same woods, different season, nothing in it. The door 4 on the far side comes back into the relay station. I've used it once. He said it the way he'd said everything else, like a man reading off a parts list. I walked to door 4 and put my hand on the wheel and didn't turn it yet. Is she alive in there? I said. In 3. I don't know. No hedge in it, no softening either. 3 people crossed into Channel 3. They didn't come back. That doesn't mean they're dead. It means they didn't come back. He held my eyes on that and didn't add anything else, didn't reach for a better way to say it, and I understood he wasn't going to. Caden opens door 4. On the other side of door 4, the forest was the same, and it was not. Same hemlock, same rock underfoot, same slope rising toward the knob, but the light was wrong. Flat, gray gold, the light of an afternoon that had already decided not to get any brighter. And the leaves overhead had turned, most of them down already, lying in a wet mat that didn't crunch when I walked on it. No wind moved them. No bird called anywhere in that whole stretch of trees. I stood still for a second and listened for the small sounds a forest makes even when it's quiet. The insect hum, the creak of a branch settling, and there was nothing. Not quiet. Absent. Like the sound had been switched off along with everything else. I didn't stop to think about what that meant. I kept the knob in front of me and walked toward it, the way Mike had told me to. And the ground held its shape the whole way, every rock where a rock should be, like the place had been traced off the real one and colored in wrong. The tower stood on top of the knob when I got close enough to see it, and for a second it stopped me anyway, because it looked new, not repainted, new, the steel dark and unweathered, no rust bleeding down the legs, like 60 years of Upper Peninsula winters had simply not happened to it here. I didn't go up to it. I didn't have time to go up to it. I went around the base of the knob the way Mike had described, and on the far side, half buried in the leaf mat, I found the door. Steel, set into a concrete frame flush with the ground. No different from the one I'd climbed down through hours ago, except that it opened the other way. I pulled it up, and there was the staircase again. Poured concrete, conduit running along the wall, and I went down into it without giving myself room to think about what I was walking back into. The relay station was lit red, not the fluorescent white I'd left it in. The emergency backup, the same red that had come up when the Not Mariah grabbed the conduit and killed the lights. I came in on the far side of the room, the side opposite door 3 and door 7, and across all that concrete floor I saw her. It was standing at the Channel 7 machine with one hand already on the switch. Its back was to me. It hadn't turned it off yet. I didn't call out. I didn't give it the half second that would take. I started across the room toward the other machine, the one still running in front of door 3, the one that had been producing its low tone since before I ever opened that door the first time, and I got my hand on the switch before it turned around. It turned around anyway. It looked at me across all that distance, and it didn't move toward me, didn't move at all, and it said a name. Not mine. Hers. Mariah. Her own name, in her own voice, the exact upward lift she puts on the second syllable. And hearing her say her own name back at me like that was worse than anything it had said to me the first time. Like something reaching for the only words it had and finding they were the wrong ones, and using them anyway because there weren't any others. I switched off the machine. It took one step toward me. One. And then it wasn't there. Not falling. Not fading out. Just gone in the middle of the motion. Gone the way a light is gone when you cut the power to it. No sound. Nothing left hanging in the air where it had been. The red came up to full white all at once. Across the room, the wheel lock on door 3 spun shut on its own, fast, and struck home with a sound like a clock hitting the hour. And then the room was quiet again. Just the Channel 7 machine still turning over somewhere behind me, still running, still keeping that door open for whoever was still on the other side of it. I sat down on the concrete floor with my back against the equipment bank, and I didn't get up for a long time. I don't know how long. Long enough that my legs had gone stiff by the time I made myself stand. I climbed the stairs back up through the hatch, up through the tower, past the firefinder scope on its dead deck, out through the ground floor door into an ordinary dark night, wind moving through it, and I didn't look back at the tower once I was clear of it. I found my way to the split boulder by feel more than by memory, and from there the trail back to the overlook parking area, and I got in my car, and I didn't start it. I just sat there with my hands on the wheel and the engine off. The sky over the lot was still black when I sat down, and it stayed that way for a long time before it started, very slowly, to go gray at the edge of the trees. Somewhere 4 miles northwest of me, the tower stood over an empty knob with a hatch open in its floor, a machine still running for a door I hadn't touched, another one dead and sealed for a door I had. I sat in the lot as the sky came up and waited. The call came into my phone at 9:40 on a Monday morning while I was sitting in the ranger station parking lot pretending to drink coffee I'd bought 2 hours earlier and let go cold. A woman's voice, professional, careful with the good kind of news. They'd found her. 200 meters from the base of a fire tower off an unmarked path, on the forest floor, conscious, dehydrated, no injuries they could find. She was asking for me by name. I don't remember driving there. I remember the trail opening onto a clearing full of people in orange vests. She was sitting up on a rescue litter with a silver blanket around her shoulders, blinking against the daylight like it had personally done something to her. My legs stopped working for a second, the way they do when you've been braced for a hit that doesn't land. "Caden," she said, and put the upward note on the second syllable, the real one, hers. And I went down on my knees next to the litter and didn't say anything for a while because there wasn't anything that would come out right. She didn't remember much. She told me that later, at the hospital, in the flat, unbothered way she tells you anything that scares her. The last clear thing in her head was making coffee on the camp stove, the burner ticking, the smell of it. Then nothing, a stretch of nothing with no edges to it, and then waking up on the ground with pine needles against her cheek and a paramedic asking her name. No tower, no stairs, no room full of cold machines. I watched her say it and I believed every word, and some other part of me that had been down in that concrete room 3 nights running sat very still and did not believe anything at all. At Aspirus Ironwood, they ran fluids into her and checked her over and told her twice that she was lucky, and she said okay both times in the voice she uses when she's decided a conversation is finished. I sat in the vinyl chair against the wall and watched the bag drip and didn't tell her about the roster or the tower or the room underneath it or what I'd switched off with my hand shaking on a rusted toggle. It was the nurse who found it, unwrapping the blanket to take her blood pressure. My number, my actual cell number, written up the inside of her left forearm in black permanent marker, in her own handwriting, the 7 leaning the way it always leans when she writes fast. "When did you do that?" the nurse asked her, not really asking, just making conversation the way nurses do. Mariah turned her arm over and looked at it like it belonged to someone else. "I don't know," she said. "I don't remember doing that." She looked up at me like I might have the other half of the answer, and I said I didn't know either, and that was true, as far as it went. Later, once they'd cleared her to go and she was dozing against the window with an intravenous bruise starting on the back of her hand, she asked me the question I'd been waiting for since the clearing. "How did you know to look near the tower?" "Someone reported seeing you there," I said. "A hiker." She nodded, satisfied, and closed her eyes. I watched her accept it the way you'd watch someone step onto a bridge you already know is going to hold, grateful and a little sick with the gratitude. I knew exactly how much weight that answer was carrying, and she had no idea it was carrying anything at all. I called the ranger station from the car somewhere past Wakefield, both hands on the wheel. Mariah's window cracked an inch, the radio off. I wanted it on record, wanted someone with a badge to know it was over. It rang once. "I know," Marsh said, before I'd gotten past his name. "I heard the machine stop." Then the line went dead. No click, nothing. Just the flat tone that means a call that was never going anywhere in particular. I spent the better part of the following week trying to find him. The Michigan Department of Natural Resources has a staff directory, and I went through it twice. I called the park's main line and asked for him by name and was told politely that no ranger by that name had ever been assigned to that station. The missing person report, the one he'd stood over my shoulder and filled out at the campsite, the one with my sister's name on it in his own hand, carried a different signature at the bottom. Jacob Campbell, not Marsh. Nowhere, on any form, in any database, in any list a person could reasonably access, was there a Jonathan Marsh. I kept the photograph of the roster on my phone. I looked at it more than I should have, late at night, in my apartment, The blue light of the screen the only light on. 9 names, 2 columns, hers 5th. A red check mark next to every one of them. The ink still looking wet in the picture, even though I knew it couldn't be. I thought about what it would take to hear a machine stop. Not to be told it stopped. To hear it, from wherever he was standing when the phone in his hand started ringing. I never got anywhere with that thought. On the drive south, somewhere around US 2 with the sun coming down low and orange through the windshield, Mariah slept against the door with her jacket rolled up under her head. Her left arm had come to rest across her lap, palm up, and the marker was still there, dark against her skin, my number in her own hand, in her own ink, written by her at some hour I would never be able to place, and in some room I would never be able to find on any map. I didn't wake her to ask about it. There wasn't a version of that answer I thought I could carry. So I left the radio off, and I kept both hands on the wheel, and I watched the road go from 2 lanes to 4 somewhere past Escanaba, and I let her sleep the whole way home.